How's everyone doing today? We're going to be doing something a little different. Obviously, if you look at my thumbnail, I wanted to talk about Justin Fields because we are in the thick of talking about draft processes and what the Bears should do with the number one overall pick. I've seen this growing debate about whether or not the Chicago Bears should trade Justin Fields, should move off of this quarterback as they go into this deep rebuild. And I've always been of the idea that they got this blessing of the number one overall pick, and now they can trade back. Now we begin to overthink things. And now, as more and more people tend to lean towards trading Justin Fields, I fail to really understand why. And with that being said, I think the most fun thing that we can do, and not to say that Colin Cowherd is, he even says it in this video that we're about to react to, he's 60-40 on Justin Fields. But his reasoning on why they should trade Justin Fields, I disagree with. I've watched a good chunk of this video already, but we're going to get through it, and I'm going to pause. I'm going to stop here in a couple points. Well, I'll just say, Colin does great work. Some of his takes, I really disagree with the reasoning. And I think that this video is more not to really say, like, me versus Colin Cowherd on his opinion. It's more of a lot of the other people that are saying they should trade Justin Fields, which I truly disagree with. So you're gonna watch the video with me, and I'm gonna stop, and we're gonna talk about some points that he does. So I got my monitor right here, so let's get into it.
100-0, that was Trevor Lawrence. I'm 60-40. The Bears had a 10-game losing streak, of which Justin Fields, I think, played 8. It is hard to lose 10 straight games in the NFL. Hard. Houston only lost 9 straight.
I just want to say this with Chicago's situation, for him to say that it's difficult to lose 10 games in the NFL, I understand it is. 10 straight is very difficult. You have to understand what Chicago did at the trade deadline. I mean, he'll talk about Chase Claypool in a minute, and we'll talk about him. You got rid of this linebacker that was the best player on your team. You've been consistently getting rid of these the talented veterans, which I think was a smart move. And I understand it's difficult to lose a lot of games, but they were not a good football team on the defense side of the ball. And we'll get into it, but like to compare to Houston, we're talking about the two worst teams in the league by far. Like, but I understand Justin Fields should take a good chunk of the blame in this, but to put it all on his shoulders is a little unfair.
And they had 6 one-possession losses. They were tanking. They took the Chiefs to overtime. It is hard to lose 10 straight games. So if you have the number one pick in a draft, it's hard to get that too, right? And you lost 10 straight games, it's sort of weird to say, hey, let's run it back at quarterback.
It's not weird when you have a young quarterback who's showing flashes. We knew Justin Fields was more of a project. It was always Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. And I think the biggest problem Justin Fields has right now is reading the defense, and I don't think schematically they do a great job of getting wide receivers open. That's the issue with the Bears. I understand it's hard to do these things, but they are not a talented roster. They do not have the veteran presence on the defensive side of the ball, and they have Darnell Mooney, who we've waited to be a wide receiver 1, and it's starting to look like he's at best a wide receiver 2. And he doesn't even get schemed open. And we watch it with Brian Dable. You can be schemed open.
Right? You got to consider what's going on. So let's be fair, because this was Justin Fields' second year, and we know that quarterbacks get better, right? They should have big leaps. First year, second year, early second year, late. Let's take his last 5 games of last year. Last 5 games. That's fair. So the last 5 games he started. Passer ratings 83. Not great. 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. Not great. He did, however, get more accurate, 63%. That I like.
Notice how he hasn't mentioned any of his rushing
And I am 60-40 on Justin Fields making it. But be careful about something I hear all the time from fans with teams with average quarterbacks. He got nothing to work with. Let's examine that. The New York Giants, in a tougher division, went to the playoffs and won a game.
They also had a better defense, a coach that schematically is one of the best in the league. We see Josh Allen, a consensus or previously consensus top 2 quarterback, faltered back to old habits. A improved offensive line with Andrew Thomas and others who are very good at pass blocking, and a quarterback who gets the ball out very quickly. The Giants timeline versus the Chicago Bears timeline are two very different things. That is a weird comparison. I think that is a very weird and arbitrary comparison.
The New York Giants have a significantly worse offensive line. I'll go to PFF grading. Giants 30th, Bears 14th. Justin Fields had a better offensive line than Daniel Jones.
I disagree on one thing. When he's going to talk about this PFF grade for the Giants, and not to say the Giants have a good offensive line, and not to say that the Chicago Bears have a good offensive line. They're both below average. The Bears, and he doesn't talk about this much in this video, about how dominant of a weapon he was on the ground. I mean, it was up to par with Lamar Jackson in 2019, something that we had never seen before. I think that for Colin to ignore that, ignore the fact that a offensive line can be a really good run blocking team, but they could be a terrible pass blocking team. And I think it does get a little overblown how bad Chicago's offensive line is, but it's not good. And I think that, yes, Justin Fields improved in accuracy, but he holds the ball too long. That's the issue. And I think a mix of that is some of the routes and the concepts that they bring up, and he's going to say that their offensive coordinator is respected. You could be respected doesn't mean that you're good at your job all the time in every single situation. I don't agree that the Chicago offense, A, for the most part, it was a little Justin Fields reliant, and B, they didn't get a lot of the wide receivers open. Just because you're a respected offensive coordinator, you can be respected in a run game. I don't think he's that respected as a passing coordinator. That's the issue. And they have a defensive-minded head coach to begin with, which is something that I was very much against.
Tight end, Cole Kmet would start for the Giants.
Okay.
Running back, edge Giants, but the Bears have two serviceable backs, and nobody thinks running back carries you to Super Bowls.
Montgomery.
Oh, I forgot. Wide receiver. Bears have nothing to work with. Darnell Mooney is better than any Giants receiver. Once Kadarius Toney got shipped off, pure talent, Mooney would start for the Giants. And so would Chase Claypool. He would. Chase Claypool had 9 touchdowns as a rookie. His first 2 years in this league, he was wildly productive. And he started this year with Mitch Trubisky and a rookie Kenny Pickett.
Why did the Steelers
even then, Chase Claypool, even then, with Mitch Trubisky, a bad O-line, an offensive coordinator nobody likes in Pittsburgh, and then Kenny Pickett, he had 32 catches in 8 games. He went to Chicago and disappeared.
He wasn't that good to begin the year. They had Deontay Johnson.
You're not a little worried about that?
They drafted a wide receiver like George Pickens.
The Bears have a better O-line, believe it or not, than the Giants. Better at tight end, more than serviceable at running back. Luke Getsy is absolutely respected offensive coordinator. And 2 of your receivers would start for the Giants. Mooney would be the... Darnell can play. Let's stop that. He can play. I think he's a 2 in this league, but he can play, and he's better than anybody the Giants have.
Like this Giants-Bears,
I think Kadarius Toney has more talent, but they moved him off to Kansas City. So be very careful about that. He's got nothing to work with. The O-line's not a disaster. Giants is. Tight end's good. Giants isn't. Backs are fine. I'm saying Chase Claypool disappeared. Would he have disappeared? Going to Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen, Burrow, Herbert. Would he have disappeared going to... I don't...
So you're telling me he would not disappear with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. He is the 4th wide receiver in there. The thing with Chase Claypool is he had a great year, and he got a lot of touchdowns, which garnered a lot of attention. And he had, I believe it was one game where he got 3 of them. I could be wrong in that fact. I don't want to say that as truth, but I'm not overstating how good or understating how good Chase Claypool is. I think he's a fine wide receiver. He's not a great route runner. And when you go into an offense that isn't, I would say, built for guys that can kind of just do contested catches, not to mention, I mean, like, I want to make it clear, there is some blame to go on Justin Fields for, like, this season and what happened and why they have the number 1 overall pick. But you saw growth from year 1 to year 2, and I think he'll point to it in a minute of these quarterbacks that make these giant leaps. I think we've been blessed to see Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow make these massive leaps that we've almost forgotten about the guys that take some time. He's in the NFC. It's not like he's in the AFC right now. You have time. And I think though they might get to this point that I've seen a lot on Twitter basically talking about, well, you have basically a couple years before you have to pay him. If he doesn't work next year and you're at the top 3 picks, there is a great quarterback class. This class is perfect for the Bears to trade down with like a team like Indianapolis, which I don't think they have as much leverage as we originally thought, but still, you could trade down with Indianapolis. You could build a great situation for whether it's Justin Fields or say a Caleb Williams or a Drake May to come into a situation. The truth is you need to build this defense up and maybe trade for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe go make a big move. Go get a Jordan Addison. Go get a Jackson Smith-Njigba that Justin Fields knows and can connect with. Because I think when we're sitting here and just watching the Chicago Bears offense, it's pitiful that they're just relying on Justin Fields, and that's not sustainable. What we saw obviously didn't lead to wins. It kept them in the competitive in a lot of games. He's acting like they got blown out in all these games. Truth is, they were competitive in a lot of these. The Miami game reminds me so well, and he had some incredible moments. I think some of the fantasy football success blurs it. We see it with Austin Eckler, but I think that Colin, just seeing him as a pocket passer, like he can't improve on that. And I think I'm not the biggest Justin Fields truther, but this is like, what does trading Justin Fields do right now versus going with Will Anderson on the number 1 pick? Because I think if you trade Justin Fields and go with Bryce Young, you're putting Bryce Young in a terrible situation just as bad. And it doesn't improve. It doesn't, if anything, it buys you time. But like, if Justin Fields isn't the answer, it's not like you're going to pay him a ton of money. And if he is the answer, you just found your franchise quarterback. And I think you could turn things around.
I don't think so. What do you have disappeared? Look how good some of these receivers. I mean, Kadarius Toney in the Super Bowl, I touched the ball like 5 times.
Why did he get traded to the Chiefs?
I'm just saying, I'm not saying Justin Fields won't work. But if I have to hear again, we got nothing to work with, it's not as pathetic as the Giants' offense, where it's Saquon Barkley at really a non-crucial position. Running backs are nice.
He's been going on this bit, and I think he called Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs a top 3 running back. I get running backs at the peak of the NFL doesn't hold as much value, but Saquon was the Giants' offense. He was comeback player of the year. If they did not have Saquon this year, they do not make the playoffs. I think that's not stated enough. Like, running backs, yes, they don't have the value when you get to the very top of the game, and they shouldn't be paid crazy amounts of money. But, like, to compare David Montgomery, who was in and out of the lineup, to Saquon Barkley is unfair. It's unfair.
Green Bay had a great one. Tennessee had a great one. Raiders had a great one. It was arguably the 3 best backs in the league. They didn't make the playoffs. Minnesota has a great one. They got beat by the Giants in the playoffs.
So, listen, I don't want to jump in here, Colin. I think this is a fascinating topic. I know the Bears aren't huge for our show, right? But do you think with Justin Fields, the Bears can build a contender to make the playoffs in the next 2 years? Because that's what you're up against. In 2 years, you got to pay Justin Fields. So is the decision more about, can we build where's the defense in this? Bottom 5 defense in the league.
You trade the number 1 pick and you get as many assets for the next 2 years and you build that defense up through the draft. And you have the most cap space. Yeah, and I get it. The Bears aren't good for our show. They're the number 1 team in this. They hold the draft by the balls, man. Oh my God. Like, it's like they're missing all the pieces of context. All of it.
Can't name 3 factors on the defense. If I look at this team and I say, we can't build a playoff team in 2 years, I ship Fields out. I start over with a new quarterback. If I'm the new GM, I just bought myself some extra time. And then I say, quarterback on the rookie deal. Now I've got 4 years to try to make a playoff team here. And again, I like Fields a lot. And this is
I think we both think he's a wildly dynamic athlete.
But the rest of the team, defense, offense,
so
I don't think in 2 years when you got to pay Fields like 30, 35 million, that's the going rate for these quarterbacks.
So the Bears have a lot of cap space, so they can solve some of their defensive shortcomings. Bengals did this 2 years ago with Burrow. They went and bought a defense. By the way, the Jaguars this year went and bought an offense.
They did.
So the Bears can solve some of their defensive issues. Just go buy them. But at some point, and I would say in the offense, I would replenish. I'd go get another tight end. I'd get another receiver.
So you think they can be a playoff team in 2 years?
No. I'm not sure they can.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure they can. Now, they could get a big break. Aaron's out of the division. He's obviously a break.
Well, Detroit Lions are on the uptick.
And Minnesota's got a lot of...
They're above...
They're always viable.
9 and 8-ish team.
Yeah. So I'm just saying...
I don't like the Minnesota Vikings. They were 13-3 this year. Like, I get it. They were at a negative differential. They're still a really competitive team. And I think if they get a guy like Lamar or an upgrade at quarterback, that roster with a couple more defense pieces is really scary. They have a point. Like, the division's much better, but when you look at the quarterbacks outside of Aaron Rodgers, if he gets moved off of, Dak Prescott is the second best quarterback in that division or in that entire conference. Jalen Hurts is clearly number 1. I could be missing some guys, but like, is it that crazy to say if Fields develops and becomes a franchise? Like, they're acting like if they find a franchise quarterback, it's a bad thing. We just watched Patrick Mahomes, who was a top 5 pass contract. I understand Mahomes is the anomaly to everything, but what are we doing? Like, are we really getting upset if Fields works out? It's what they seem. Oh,
don't tell me you can't discuss this.
You have to discuss it.
2 years, even at the end of last year where he was better, it's an 83 passer rating. And the O-line is better than the Giants. The tight end's better than the Giants. 2 of their receivers would start for the Giants, and they have serviceable running backs. Not great. You're not picking them for your fantasy team probably, but they're fine.
I do like Fields a lot, but again, I don't think this team is making the playoffs, so I would then get my scouting report. Hey, do we like Bryce Young? Do we like C.J. Stroud? Do we like Will Levis?
What would Will Levis do in that situation? I like Will Levis. I think he could be really interesting in a good offense like the Panthers, a team that wants to develop him. What would Will Levis do? It would be the dumbest. Like, they're acting like this is a... Like, I get it. You do have to consider all options. I'm not saying this is not an option. But I feel like you need a lot of things to convince yourself to go quarterback. Like, you're swapping... you have so many assets. They literally are so close to the answer, and then they pivot and go left. And oh my God, it makes my head hurt. I
don't know, Kyle. Or do you say we're going to keep Justin Fields? We're going to trade out of the number 1 pick. Maybe Indy. Jim Irsay hard up already for Bryce Young.
Okay, so it's interesting. So the top 4 picks are Chicago, Houston, Arizona, Colts. So why would Houston move up if they think Chicago's taking Will Anderson? They don't need to. They can get Bryce Young. So I don't think Chicago has as big a market as you think to trade down. So Arizona's going to take a defensive player.
Or Gannon will want to trade down. The new head coach. They need a lot of stuff in Arizona.
Everybody wants to trade down unless you have star quarterbacks. We don't have a star quarterback.
Fair.
So Arizona takes defense. Chicago takes defense. And Houston knows it. Well, Indy knows. Indy doesn't love any of these quarterbacks. They may think Bryce Young is better, but Bryce Young isn't Caleb Williams or Drake May next year. He's not Trevor Lawrence. So no.
So you got to be Trevor Lawrence or bust. If Caleb Williams and Drake May are the goal, then why wouldn't Chicago just roll with this quarterback, trade down, get as many assets as possible, build a nice situation. If Justin Fields doesn't work out, you trade him for less, and then you go get these Caleb Williams, this Drake Mays, and then you restart. Like, why is there pressure to do it this year? That's like, because I understand he's like, if you were to rebuttal, if he was sitting in front of me, like, he would probably say, I don't know, it's hard to have the number one pick. It's hard to have this much value. If Justin Fields really doesn't work, and you've traded the number one pick, you have all these assets, you can move up. And, like, you can make the thing is you need a better situation for a quarterback to thrive in, and at least you have to try with Justin Fields. Like, you traded up to
Nobody
go get him.
around Chicago has to move up.
Didn't,
Houston's going to get their quarterback, and the Colts are going to get their quarterback.
Well, so
why-
we're in the process now of looking at houses. We've been thinking
Right.
about buying a house.
Yeah.
And the number one rule is do not fall in love with a house, because
right.
then you end up overpaying and it goes awry. The quarterback process has begun for a lot of these needy teams, Colin. The combine's coming up here, 2 weeks?
Right.
They're going to go interview the quarterbacks.
Right.
Somebody's going to fall in love with Young, Stroud, or Levis. In those interviews, somebody's going to, oh, this guy's so good. He commanded the room.
These are not.
He aced the wonder.
These are not A prospects.
I would agree. That being said, people traded up for Carson Wentz. Another bad quarterback that was taken top 3. The Jets took Zach Wilson too. They fell in love with him, like Zach Wilson. It happens, man. Somebody's gonna boy, Will Levis. That guy got his master's degree already. 4.0 in high school, college, like super smart. A lot to like about Will Levis. Somebody's gonna fall in love with one of these guys.
Will Levis is.
That's all we need to watch, because these are not A prospects. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry that there's not there's not an Andrew Luck, there's not a Trevor Lawrence every class. But let's look at the state of the NFL, right? Jalen Hurts was 2nd round pick. Dak Prescott was a 5th round pick, I believe. If you look at the AFC, you had to trade up for Patrick Mahomes. He was outside the top 10. Joe Burrow was number 1, clearly. Josh Allen was top 8. Lamar Jackson was barely in the 1st round. Just going down the list, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was late first, and you had to develop him for years and years and years on end. I could keep going. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, obviously, I would say he's top 10 at this point, and he was a number 1 overall pick. Justin Herbert was not expected to be this good, truly, because there was a debate between him and Tua. Like, I don't know why we are just picking these top, like Burrow and T-Law as these are the standard. They are the anomalies to the rule, and I don't get why people want to trade for Justin Fields. And if you do, let me know down in the comments. I don't believe in it. And thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you like these reaction videos. This is new to me. So thanks so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.